3 days until the second impeachment trial of former President Trump, and there's still a lot we do not know about the week and how it's going to play out.
Yeah, House Democrats are signaling that they don't think they need to force the former president to testify to make their case. They argue his refusal helps prove their point, as will evidence from other sources, such as videos of the Capitol riot. No word yet if any witnesses will be called to testify. No word as to how long this trial will run. But let's bring in CNN legal analyst Shan. He's a defense attorney and a former federal prosecutor. So I want to get on that point first of all with you, Shan. Does President Trump's refusal to testify actually prove their point, or is it just a smart legal strategy?
Well, it's both. It is a smart legal strategy. I would certainly not advise any client, much less Trump, to testify. Prosecutors salivate at the idea of cross-examining a defendant. And when I was a prosecutor, very few of my cases had the defendant testify, but you can win anyway because of the other evidence. So in that sense, they don't want him testifying. That's a smart legal strategy. But at the same time, there is plenty of other evidence to prove his guilt, if you will.
Shan, there is this bipartisan, nonpartisan group of 144 constitutional attorneys who say that the president's attorney's argument of First Amendment defense is legally frivolous, in their words. They make a couple of major points. The first one is that the First Amendment does not apply to impeachment proceedings. Secondly, even if it doesn't prohibit conviction and disqualification for violating the oath of office. What's your take on that perspective?
I think that's absolutely right. I think there's a lot of cherry-picking that goes on with Trump defense team experts, where they're trying to make these somewhat flawed analogies to criminal trials. And even in a criminal trial, you're going to have a hard time using the First Amendment to disprove an intent to do violence. And here, I think, the evidence is going to speak for itself, and I don't think there's going to be any real First Amendment issue. And also, who are they going to raise it to? Are they really going to try to go to the courts right now? There's no indication of that. So it's an impeachment trial. It's not a court trial. The senators will hear the evidence that they choose to hear.
Okay, so I want to touch on something you just said, because we know that in criminal cases, intention is key. You're saying it's not as key here. In an impeachment trial, you know, they have him saying fight like hell. You know, I'm wondering about his words and how pivotal intention at the end of the day would be in a case like this. And what is the most compelling evidence Democrats have of it?
I think the most compelling evidence is the words and the video of him speaking. And the intent's important. It's just not quite as, let's say, analytical as in a criminal case where you have specific elements that have to be proven. Here, his words leading up to the riot certainly indicate that he wants some sort of fight against the election results. His reaction to the riot is a little bit unknown at the moment, but even now, he continues to say that the election was wrong. That all goes to his intent to incite a revolt against the results of the election. So that's going to be pretty easy to show his intent, I think.
So let's listen here to Senator Lindsey Graham.
But if you open up that can of worms, we'll want the FBI to come in and tell us about how people actually pre-planned these attacks.
Yeah, that's talking about calling for witnesses. The suggestion is that planning for the insurrection before January 6th would absolve the president for his comments on that day or around that time. What's your take on at least the suggestion from the senator?
I think that's a red herring. It's something that's irrelevant to Trump's conduct. He's being tried for having a motivation to incite this rebellion or insurrection, and whether his words that day telling them to fight, to march on the Capitol was an incitement. And what's important for the viewers to remember are these distinctions between normal criminal trials and an impeachment trial. The impeachment's a political exercise. What does that mean? You know, as Senator Schumer said, it's really a question of conscience. And how will the senators, the jurors, think about this? How will they vote their conscience? And it's a question of conscience for our country as well.
To Victor's point about what Senator Graham said there, do you get the sense that as a distraction tactic, the Capitol Police and other law enforcement entities may, in a sense, be on trial as well for what happened leading up to, or what did not happen leading up to the Capitol riot, and how effective is a tactic like that? of distraction?
Actually, that's a really good legal tactic. Luckily, you're not on the defense team. That sort of distraction, placing the blame on a failure of intelligence, they haven't gone after the real criminals here, the real conspirators, that would be a very clever legal strategy. It doesn't look like that's where it's heading. Again, politically, they're probably afraid to be blaming the Capitol Police or law enforcement. It looks like their main strategy is going to be arguing that it's unconstitutional or that he really didn't have the intent.
Is there any value for the Democratic House managers to call a witness a constitutional law expert, as they did in the first impeachment inquiry in the House, to do that during the impeachment trial?
I think there is. That would be their rebuttal against the Trump legal defense team's claim that this is unconstitutional. I don't know that that's really going to have much effect on swaying the Senate jurors. I think what could have an effect is calling witnesses that actually saw the violence, police who were subjected to violence. When I tried violent crime cases, the testimony from victims was very compelling, and I think that is a nugget which might sway some people.
All right, Shan Wu, always good to have your expertise. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shan.
And be sure to watch CNN for special live coverage of former President Trump's second impeachment trial. Coverage starts Tuesday.